Hello dear friends. The other day I was at work and oh, Murphy's Law. I picked up this beautiful cup and I thought, well, I'm going to make myself a nice cup of tea, and as I put it under the urn I just heard a pop and I thought, oh, that's not sounding good. Anyway, I noticed that water was leaking from it, and then I noticed that there was this very fine crack here just underneath, and when I looked carefully there was a little chip. So I asked permission if I could take this home because I said I'd like to cut this up into mosaic tiles. And I have done this before because back home in South Africa I used to teach people how to do mosaics. So that's what I would like to show you today. But before I begin, let me just show you some of the things that I've actually done in the past. So when you're doing mosaics and you want to add a little bit of interest, you could do something like this, where here I've added in clay tiles that were stamped with these little windmills. I've got just such a soft spot for windmills. They were always all over the countryside in South Africa pumping water for the animals. I used to love riding as a child as a bike. I loved the birds, and we had plenty of guinea fowls. And then the other thing that I did was just have these little clay flowers to put in as inserts, just to add another dimension to the mosaic. So the idea behind cutting up these cups is to be able to have these little points of interest that are just a little bit different from your normal tiles. So your normal tiles might come like that on a sort of a mesh backing. They will peel off quite easily. You can just pull them off with your fingers. Or some of the smaller tiles might come on gummed paper. These you could soak in water and they will just come off really easily. This would be the underside and the top side would be smooth. And then obviously I have gone ahead, and this is the cup that I had in South Africa that broke, and I've managed to keep the handle intact, although there was a crack there. But that's quite nice. That could be something dimensional in a piece of work, especially if I was doing something on the wall. I rather liked this cat. I didn't know what I was going to make, so I left the cat fairly whole. And then I have a few other little cat images and things here. Let me just try and bring the camera a little bit closer so you can see. So you'll see here that there are a whole lot of cat images. We've got quite nice little bits and pieces of pattern, flowers, some stripes, some dots, and those I'd all add into my work. Cups will always have a curve to them because of the shape, and for this one I kept the curve intact because I thought, I don't know how big I'd like a piece if I'm coming to make something with it, but I could cut it down and make it into something smaller, which would give me a much flatter piece to work with. So that's the one thing that you're going to have to just bear in mind, is that because you're cutting a curved surface, there'll be that ever so slight little curve to it. So before we begin, I'm just going to clear away this space and get out some safety equipment, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so what you'll notice is that I have placed a towel onto my table. I've got my cup, and then I have these which are called mosaic tile nippers. They've got a very sharp little blade, a bit like a small rotary cutter, and you can change these if you undo that with an Allen key and you've got some more blades. And then this one I brought just to show you. It would be more for cutting flat surfaces like tiles, that once you've made a cut, and especially on glass, you can hold it with this tool and then just press down, because it'll keep it flat on either side and break nice and cleanly. So when I'm working, I put on a pair of goggles, which I have now just to protect one's eyes. One doesn't want anything flowing up and falling into your eyes and creating cuts, and you certainly don't want it cutting your skin. And then you need to make some decisions about where you'd like to cut it. So I've got a natural line here where this cup has chipped, and I'm just seeing it goes down here like that and across here. So it'll probably cut along that line fairly easily. So because of that, I think this is going to be my first cut. I'm just going to exaggerate it. So I'm going to place the little wheels of my tile cutters into that little groove, and I'm not going to cut until I've actually covered it with a tile. Now this is my preferred method of working, is that by covering this with a towel, I've got something that will catch all the little mosaic pieces so they don't fly all over the place, which is a possibility, but also that nothing will fly up towards my skin or my face and cause any damage. So I'm going to now take this, I'm going to cover it with a towel, and then I'm going to squeeze on the handle, and we'll hear a cut, and let's see what happens. Sometimes it works as you want it, sometimes it doesn't, so it could be a surprising day. Let's see. Right, so I've covered it nicely. My hands are here. You can see I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure, and there's a crack. So it has exaggerated the crack, but it hasn't gone all the way through. So I'm going to now put my cutters in a little bit further down, if I can get it ever so slightly down. Cover it again and just cut once more. See if I can wiggle it. Ah, there we go. So that's actually cut reasonably nicely, almost into two pieces. So if I wanted to be really clever and make something like a wall hanging, I could perhaps work this so that I could actually get this flat up against a board and maybe put a little pot plant in there, or even that one. But for today's purposes, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just carry on cutting. So decide where you want to make your cuts, and then you'll carry on. So at the moment, I think what I'd like to do is loosen the base of my cup here. So I'm going to put my mosaic cutters in, find whichever side is comfortable to you, and you will already see that there are these little shards of china that have popped up. So this is what you're trying to avoid by covering it. And I'm going to place my towel over it, and then using my hands just squeeze. Be quite firm. Right, so that hasn't cut completely cleanly. It might not, just because of the nature of the cup. I'm going to turn my cutting tool from that side to this side so I can get in closer to this edge. I just want to see if I can get some of this off the bottom here. Right, covering it over, giving it a good squeeze, and it makes quite a nice ping. There we go. So that's come off. I have very little left on the base there. Now my decision would be, what am I going to do? So that's actually quite a nice big piece of a daisy. So I think I'm going to try and cut that off here. I'm putting my mosaic cutters as far as I can in towards the middle, making sure I've got it reasonably parallel there. And squeeze. Oh, this one doesn't want to squeeze. Sometimes if you're squeezing too close to where the join is here, it doesn't work. So move your hands further out towards the end of the cutters, and sometimes it just doesn't work. So I'm going to move my cutters a little bit closer to the edge now. Nope, this is quite a thick piece then. Right, so let's try it from this angle. Don't be upset if it doesn't always work first time, you know. I mean, it's never going to be perfect each time. Oh, this is going to be a tricky one, isn't it? Right, so let's cut this here. Glory be. I wonder how this cup ever chipped. Let's try it from the other side. Ah, that's easier. Right, so there I've got a nice little piece that I've got, some nice blues. And you might find that you're going to have to do exactly what I'm doing here, is just play with it to see how the best way is to cut it. So this one seems to be cutting easier if I put the blades on the inside. So let's try again. There we go, nice clean cut, and I've got a nice little flower. Those are quite fun. Right, so let's try again with this daisy, but I'll bear in mind that that's my mark. Just want to get it a little bit flatter. Oh goodness, this one doesn't seem to want to cut at all. That might be the problem, is that there's quite a thick edge at the bottom here, just where that joined onto the lip. So let me try and see if I can get that off and see if it makes a difference. Nope. Cover it over. Gosh, no. Okay, let's set that aside for now. We'll just tackle the rest of this cup. And let's try get some color over here. Right, I'm going to lay that down flat just so that I can get my lines accurate. Gosh, okay. Oh, this is a challenging cup. Oh my word. Okay, never mind, perseverance is the name of the game. Ah, there we go. Forgot to do it from the inside. So we're going to cut through the middle of this white over here, like that. When it snaps really beautifully, but for now it was just having a little moment. So I'm going to get the top of that off there. Okay, And I'm going to break that up into 2 pieces here, like that. There we go. Some nice bits of colour there. And let's see if I can get those 2 separated here. That's okay. I'll get that off here. Leaf. We'll cut the white off here because we probably won't need that. Okay. Let's get some of this off. That one's not so good. I'll just try and neaten this. So some of this china is proving to be fairly tough, so what I'm doing is covering it with a towel. I'm just going to give it a little whack just to break it more easily. It won't be controlled, but it'll help a bit. I don't know why this cup is so much thicker than the previous ones I've cut, but never mind. So you can see that this is breaking it up nicely. It wouldn't have been my first choice to work this way, but now that I've got some smaller pieces, I'll go back to trying with my cutters. This is one tough mug. Never mind, let's give it another whack here. There we go. Even a whack with this is not working that well. Anyway, I'm going to carry on cutting this, and I will just speed it up for you. Well, you can see now that this cup didn't go quite according to plan. Yeah, we had to go to plan B because the cup for some reason was really thick. It might have been to do with the temperature that it was fired at. I'm not 100% certain, but the end I actually had to resort to covering this and just using the side of these to smash them. You could also have used some kind of a hammer or a mallet, but you'll see we've got quite a nice selection of different size pieces, and you could cut them smaller if you wished. So I've kept this one fairly intact because I think quite like that little daisy on its own, and I've got smatterings of other colors, and you'll have a look here. You'll see there are lots of little splintery bits of glass, which is why I prefer working on a piece of towel so that I can actually shake that all out. So this will now be the basis of doing a future project. You could do around the lip of a flower pot, you could do some tiles, you could do them for inserts on trays and things, but most of these pieces now are relatively flat. and obviously the smaller they get, the flatter they will be. So thanks for joining me today. I'm sorry that I didn't work according to plan just using the cutters, but there is always another way to do things, and don't be disheartened when things don't work out the way you want them to the first time round. You just sometimes have to learn from these things. Not every piece of material is exactly the same, and yeah, we still have some stuff that we can work with. So have a lovely weekend, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.